listening to the AZ Wildcats podcast. I'm your host, Mike Luke. All right, now joined by the venerable Brad Allis, coming from a new location, it appears, right there, with a little Lute Olson bobblehead over your left shoulder.
Yeah, coming from my son's room, which used to be my dining room, which was also my home office. So the bookshelf is mine. The rest of the room is Tyler's. I'm hoping for a little of his greatness to rub off on me today.
All right. Well, speaking of greatness, we got a lot to get through this show. We're going to talk about the U of A defense, a lot of good things. JDL, we're going to rank the Arizona's front court when it looks around the Pac-12 and nationally. But first, Brad, we got a lot of JDL to get to for sure. But this was the first time in about 5 or 6 years that it felt like Arizona had a defense out there that did not feel fluky. Again, it wasn't the Desert Swarm, but from a size, scheme, and just talent perspective, it looked decent, and that's something that we haven't seen in a long time here.
Despite playing with the short field, I want to say 4 times. If I'm not mistaken, twice they started in Arizona territory, including after the long punt return, twice right around midfield. Arizona gave up 24 points in regulation, despite committing 5 turnovers. The defense basically gave up 2 long-ish drives, and that's the first one of each half. Then they made adjustments. They were good. They weren't great, but they were good. And it's been a long time since we could say that. They played good enough to win. They're one of their few missed tackles in overtime. I know that sucks. I think that was the biggest play from scrimmage also for Mississippi State. They did everything they needed to do to win. Now I will say this. I thought Mississippi State had an awful game plan. I thought
when you mentioned that on the post game, it's weird that you would go away from the air raid.
Not even that, but so they're running really well in the first half, and then they threw just enough to take that out of rhythm. And then when Arizona proved they could stop the run, they averaged like less than, it's like 3.9 a carry or something.
Right.
And then of course that includes a couple sacks. Will Rogers is a good QB. I know Mississippi State fans seem to be torn on him. He's a good QB. He was 13 of 17. Later in that game, when you're not moving the ball, you got to let that kid throw more. Earlier in the game, I thought they let him throw too much, and not because of him, because they were running so effectively. And this is what you see college coaches at every level. Sometimes you just get away from what works. In some regards, the coaches in the 70s who ran the same thing over and over and over had a little more feel for things. But so I thought Mississippi State was not great offensively, but I thought Arizona played really well. I'm still a little baffled by a few things, especially the reemergence of Gunnar Maldonado.
We're going to trust me. We're going to talk about Gunnar
Maldonado. I thought Taylor played better. Again, I know they're claiming Irby wasn't hurt. My guess is he was probably at least dinged up or something happened there, even though his replacement, Warnell, did not play poorly either. But it was this was a great showcase game for Justin Flowe. It's his type of game when again, Mississippi State was essentially playing a 1980s offense with 17 passes and 40 something runs. But Flowe was good. Jacob Manu was really good again. Overall,
talk about the D line here first. I want to get your take on, you promised you were going to watch Big Bill Norton up close and personal. What did you think of Big Bill Norton?
Bill Norton played really well, and you're right. He is big. Now, I'm a guy, I watch a ton of NFL, so he doesn't look abnormally huge, but that ain't Parker Zellers out there. That ain't
Brad Allis.
That ain't a converted tight end out there. That's a big man. Played, and he and the rest of the line played really well. They didn't let runners get outside them. Now they got pushed around in the first drive of the game. Maybe
the first couple drives, it felt like it was going to be an issue. It really did, because Mississippi State's running backs weren't being touched until they were at the linebacker level.
They were getting blown off the ball, and then whatever adjustments they made worked great, because they looked every bit the equal, if not the superior, of Mississippi State's offensive line from about the second possession on.
What was also impressive to me about this is that it didn't feel fluky. In the past, when Arizona has had a good defensive performance, and they've been very few and far between, it always felt like, well, the other team, it was more of what the other team did. This was a lot different, Brad, in that Arizona, especially by midway through the first quarter, and Brad Rich, we're going to get to you in just a second, but it felt like Arizona, this is kind of who they are. Again, it's early in the season. I get it. But this didn't feel fluky like things in the past have.
It wasn't a lot of penalties on Mississippi State. It wasn't drop snaps. It wasn't drop balls. it was, again, you could fault their play calling, but overall, Arizona just played good defense.
Right.
Again, was it great? No. We'll never see Desert Swarm again anywhere because the offense it's
just too different.
But this is a good defense, I think. And now it's going to get a lot harder. As much as I like Will Rogers, he's the 8th best quarterback in the Pac-12.
Mm-hmm.
And maybe even lower than that, but the way some guys were emerging this weekend. The Pac-12 is probably the deepest conference in college football this year.
Feels weird to say that.
Yeah, it does. It's not top heavy like the SEC. The SEC is pretty average, except for Georgia. Same thing in the Big Ten. And in fact, I don't know what the ACC is because Clemson's just not very good. The Pac-12 has, I think, anywhere from 3 to 4 elite teams, and then a whole bunch 5 to 10. That's pretty interesting.
Right.
So the defense will be tested, but they're also capable of keeping Arizona in games.
Brad Rich, a man with 2 first names. Mike Luke, I called that one. Justin Flowe. Brad, here's what happened. I told Brad and everybody else they needed to play Justin Flowe more, and Brad Rich and everybody else said there's no way they should play Justin Flowe more. I said stay the course. Arizona stayed the course. Obviously, that's all wrong. It's all backwards. But Justin Flowe, we got to talk about him. That was a big time performance right there, and you saw some of the parts that made him such a big time high school football recruit. Quite frankly, he's the highest rated player if you just go by high school rankings to ever come here.
Yeah, I mean, the problem is how much does he fit into the wide open passing game?
Right.
Mississippi State had a more conventional run game. I think Justin Flowe could have a big game against Utah. He could have a big game against a few other things, but how much can he see the field against USC?
See, I think Brad, I think you got to play him though. I think you got
to maybe that's true. Unfortunately for the kid, if he was born 15 years ago, he's a top 15 pick. He's also not transferring to Arizona, but he's not. He's born a little bit too late, and not unlike running backs. It's just not a good time to be a linebacker with your pro aspirations.
But I do think, though, that Justin Flowe has to play more because he has an ability to impact a game positively and to a lesser extent negatively in a way that Daniel Haimuli doesn't. Again, it's not necessarily a shot at Daniel Haimuli, solid player, but you notice when Justin Flowe is out there. You notice it pretty much every single snap, and he's not missing tackles like we're missed in overtime right there. I became a real believer in that game that you've got to get him out there for 70% of those snaps at least.
I think what you got to do is you got to figure out how to utilize him, and that's probably rushing him to the passer more. Right. He's not a great pass coverage guy. Okay, so find a way to use to his strength.
Right.
Which is his athleticism, which is flowing with the ball. So if that means you're sending him on 10 blitzes a game, okay. And maybe what you do is you then drop a defensive end in the zone coverage.
Right.
That old Pittsburgh, their old zone rush play. I think you need to find more snaps for Flowe, but there's also going to be times where the matchups just are going to be difficult for him. But we'll see how good the coaching is to utilize it.
Yeah, defensively, though, I got to say, and we're going to get to the offense here in a second, but defensively, I've got to say that I was skeptical coming into the year, but so far, so good. And you got to believe that Dwayne Aquina has had a real imprint on this. I refuse to believe that just watching this defense, that Dwayne Aquina and his tentacles aren't everywhere throughout that defense.
I think there's no doubt Aquina and the other defensive back coach they brought in, the guy with the ties to Washington State, I think he has helped as well. And obviously, it's just a talent infusion mixed with another year of Johnny Nansen getting experience under his belt. So I think those 4 things all together has made Arizona having a better defense.
All right. Now, we got to talk. We're talking defense. We got to talk about Gunnar Maldonado. Gunnar Maldonado was suspended for the first half, obviously. And then in the second half, Gunnar Maldonado comes in and immediately Mississippi State starts going after him. There's always players. There's always somebody that a coach holds near and dear that nobody else can quite understand why they're out there. Gunnar Maldonado, I think, is that guy for Jedd Fisch right there. Yes, I know that he can hit, but he can't cover it all, and teams go after him immediately.
My only thought is he must be really good in meetings. He must really quickly grasp things.
Yeah, but I can do that. You can do that.
Yeah, but I'm telling you what, that's the only thing I can think of, because the other guys appear to be more talented than him.
Right.
And again, he whether it's and I know he was in on the play that they scored on. He had the bad penalty against NAU. I would completely go towards Taylor.
I
Who
think
we
you got
thought
to go Taylor, Genesis Smith. Start just taking your lumps, because at this point, too, Brad, Gunnar Maldonado's in his 4th year of college. We know what Gunnar Maldonado is at this point. He's not going to get any better, and he's always going to be a liability in pass coverage. You've got to be able to get some of those younger guys out there, in my opinion, because this dude's ceiling has already been hit, and it's not good enough.
No, and maybe the alternative is to go with the third corner, with more of a slot corner than him at the. I don't know, because I like the Irby Warnell grouping. I like Taylor. I'm not sure who else was getting reps the other night, but they were better with Maldonado not on the field.
Yes. All right. Now we got to talk a little bit about Jacob Manu right here, the tackle machine. Now, one thing I will say is that Jacob Manu, you can clearly tell that physically he's definitely a step slow. Instinctually, he is fantastic. He's definitely a little bit of a step slow, though, when it comes to the, just looking about SEC athletes. Where are we at with Jacob Manu right now? I mean, I have him as a good linebacker, but I'm also starting to wonder that he probably doesn't have that Marcus Bell type next level to where you're good, but you're a difference maker, if that makes any sense. You want to go Marcus Bell?
Is he I was going to say, is he a poor man's Marcus Bell? Is he a poor man's Scooby?
Mm-hmm.
Scooby, well, not good enough for the NFL.
But good
enough to be USFL Defensive Player of the Year.
Right.
Jacob Manu is good for 12 tackles, but I don't know how many of them are difference-making tackles.
Right.
Can he get that big play? And I just don't know. But right now, again, and tackle stats are a little misleading, because, again, if your safety's leading you in tackles, you're in trouble. But if your linebackers are, sometimes that's a good thing. But he and Flowe, what they combined for 24 tackles? I think right now, yeah, Manu looks like he's just a really good college linebacker.
And there's nothing wrong with that.
No, especially in this defense, which, again, is going to keep you in games, not win you games.
Right.
Often.
Well, we'll get to that in a second. By the way, Brad Allis, you're always all over the city. When was the last time you went to Circle K? Be honest, my friend.
Within the last 72 hours. There was sometime over the weekend.
That's what we like to hear right now. Now, you can join Inner Circle. Get it? Circle K, Inner Circle. For free by downloading the Circle K app today. Terms and conditions apply at participating locations. Visit CircleK.com for details right there. All kinds of good stuff and game time. All right. Now, maybe you're like William Brad Allis and you like going to concerts, you like going to games, and you're like Brad and you're not always punctual. Game Time has it there for you. You want to go to a Metallica concert? They've got it. Check it out. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code PHNX for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem code PHNX for $20 off. Download Game Time today. Last minute tickets, lowest price guaranteed. All right, let's move to the offensive side of the ball right here a little bit. All right, Brad Rich says, all right, difference-making tackles to me are the tackles that are up near the line of scrimmage, that are not that you're just bringing somebody down 7 yards beyond, or 7 yards downfield, where the defense can it's already 2nd and 3 at that point. Is that fair, Brad Allis?
Yeah, there was a play, and I can't remember which half it was. Basically, Manu met the running back in the backfield and bounced off.
Right.
And the guy ended up with a 7-8 yard gain. If he brings him down there, or even if he slows him up enough for a guy like Flowe. So, yeah, if you're getting all your tackles 5 to 7 yards downfield, it's still important and it's still good, but it's and I'd love to see like a quality tackle stat, 2 or 3 yards downfield. Same thing is Bill Norton cannot have a tackle the whole game and still be an impact player because of controlling his gap.
Big Bill Norton controlling his gap, funneling players to the linebackers. So again, 12 tackles is 12 tackles. Don't get me wrong, but how many of those are 7 yards downfield as opposed to within 2 yards of the line of scrimmage? Yeah. All right. Now moving over to the offensive side of the ball. I'm at the point with JDL where it's this. He is capable of really, really high highs. We've seen that. He's also capable of really, really low lows. I think, listen, I understand going with him, totally get it. But I do believe that your upside ultimately is somewhat limited with JDL because we're in a fourth year in your program at this point, and he's still doing this, or fourth year in college, and he's still making throws that you don't make in Pop Warner.
I'm going to disagree with, and we may be playing semantics. I think the upside is there with JDL, and that's the only reason they're still going with him.
No doubt.
He is a high risk, high reward player. Arizona had a chance to win that game because of Jayden de Laura. Arizona lost that game because of Jayden de Laura. I'm not sure Noah Fifita has those lows, but I'm not sure Noah Fifita can bring Arizona back either. Jayden de Laura is what he is. And my podcast, which will be up this afternoon, I do 20 minutes on this. He's a gunslinger. There's three types of good quarterbacks. There's the gunslingers. There's the complete control guys, the Brady's, the Montanas, and then there's the freaks of nature, the Mahomes, the Peyton Mannings, who have a little bit of that. He is in the mold. I'm not saying he's nearly as good, obviously, of Favre, of Elway, where he's going to try to force some balls. And I think if you look at his interceptions, 2 were awful. 2 were that first one. I see what he saw when they show the replay. The tight end was settled in the zone. He just missed the safety. He misjudged the depth of the safety. 5 guys in the NFL made that same play this weekend. The one to T-Mac in the fourth quarter, yes, he forced it in there. Yes, he probably should have run. It was pass interference.
What about the play, though, where he snuck it, though? Because I know it worked out, but that was an awful play right there.
I still don't know how much of that. I don't know if Fisch mentioned it. Yeah, it would have been disaster if he didn't make it. So I ride him till his mistakes are so bad you lose by 21, kind of like the Washington game last year.
Right.
And then it's time to turn it over. But as long as his mistakes and his highs are almost counteracting his mistakes, I don't know what Fifita has yet. And I think the coaches don't know. Maybe they do know. And it's really hard for me to be convinced that Braden Dorman's the guy in year one.
At what point, though, let me ask you this, though, because I've bounced this back and forth a lot, and I don't really know. At what point, though, do you have to be able to hold the player accountable to a certain degree? I mean, like you said, Arizona almost won the game because of Jayden de Laura, but Arizona lost that game because of Jayden de Laura's mistakes.
It's when they get blown out because of Jayden de Laura that I pull the plug. And that's what it is. Right. I ride them till the mistakes are just too great.
Okay.
So that won't be UTEP if he somehow loses the Stanford game for you. Because, and again, I judge blowout based upon your team. A 10-point loss to Stanford is a blowout to Stanford. A 21-point loss or a 28-point loss to USC because of his mistakes. There's different. It's a weighted scale. So if his 3 picks against Stanford cost Arizona a game against a mediocre to bad football team, then that's when you bench him.
I'm frustrated, though, with him is that, and again, he's still a good quarterback. I mean, we've seen bad quarterbacks here at the U of A. We've seen a lot of bad quarterbacks. Jayden de Laura does not fit into that category at all. But they have enough talent around him now, whether it's on the offensive line, whether it's in the backfield at the receivers. We're going to get into playing a few more guys here in a second. But he doesn't need to try to do all this stuff on his own because the talent is there across the board. This isn't 2 years ago. That's where it's almost like, dude, just chill out just a little bit here.
He has to know when, and he does it well sometimes, when to dump it down to Wiley, when to throw it away, when to take off and run. I think the pick, and I want to say it's the fourth one, the one to T-Mac, he probably can run for 10 yards, pick up the first, instead of forcing it in there.
Right.
That pass out onto the flats that was picked off by the corner 10 feet in front of the receiver. Just an awful throw, awful read.
And I think you could make the case, too, that the cowing fumble was on him, too, because that was a difficult throw that he made right there to a guy that was about to get blasted by the linebacker.
And maybe a poorly designed play, because I don't know how many guys were up front blocking for cowing.
Right.
And again, that was just a vicious hit. So, and to me, and unfortunately, that's the worst turnover of the game, because if Arizona scores there, it's 14-7. Right. And who knows where that game's going. And again, Arizona still had a chance to win. But yeah, I mean, it's maddening but this is who de Laura is. Because if he was going to fix these problems, he would have fixed it over the summer and we would have a different guy. This is 2 games in a row. He's had some maddening turnovers.
Let's talk about the O-line here. Jedd Fisch said before the year, he said, I know it's not used to being a strength of the team around here, but it's going to be a strength. There's a ton of talent. And granted, Raymond Polito wasn't even playing, but Big Jonas Savanea, Jordan Morgan, those are what first round offensive linemen look like, Brad.
Yeah, and they weren't necessarily first-round draft picks, but it reminds me of some of those Tomey lines. I was, in fact, watching the 30 for 30 on the Baltimore Ravens Super Bowl team, and there's Edwin Mulatalo there. Yeah. So there's some talent there, definitely. And they're a little bit playing out of position. They couldn't establish the run today or that Saturday, but their pass protection was pretty good.
Let's talk about the run here for a second. That's a great point. I am of the belief Michael Wiley's very, very good. I'm not saying take him out of the game at all, but they also, I thought it was noticeable, and granted, he only got 2 carries or whatever, but Speedy Luke has a burst there. Fam has a burst in the backfield that these other guys don't have. Michael Wiley, very good. Again, not saying take him out or anything, but he is far more deliberate when he hit that hole. The second that Speedy went in there and he made that 11-yard run or whatever the case may be, I don't know that any of the other running backs can make that move right there. That can make that play.
I just don't know how many times you can run Speedy Luke off tackle. I think you got to gimmick him still. He's still small and he's still fumbling. He hasn't fumbled in the game yet, but at the end of the day, you just need to be able to establish the run with that line. Again, they weren't awful, but they were under 4 yards a carry.
Right.
And to me, it would be a steady diet of Wiley, Coleman, Williams, and then find ways to
So you just agree with me. You don't want to see more fam. You're not part of the free fam movement.
I don't like how they're using them.
Right.
I want to line them up in the slot. I want to jet sweep them. I want to bubble screen them.
Right.
I want to misdirection where you fake the dive or fake the read option and you do the little pitch. I want him out on the perimeter. I want him running wheel routes where he's matched up with a linebacker and he gets behind the linebacker, and then you're dropping that dime in on him. Kind of like they used to do with JJ Taylor or some of those guys. That's what I want to see.
I guess when it comes down to it, and we're going to talk about the receivers here in a second, Mr. Jones, but I think when it just comes down to it, I think he's too talented not to utilize, to not have some role right there.
He needs his own package like Deshaun Jackson had, like D'Anthony Thomas had, like the smaller of the brothers at Oregon State had. Frankly, like they kind of used to do with some of the smaller, how many times they find a way to get Samaje Grant or Bug Wright or any of those guys in space. Mike Thomas in space. I mean, Mike Thomas was a receiver, obviously not a running back, and some of those other guys. But yeah, there's some other things you could, and maybe you're saving that. You're holding on to some things. Maybe you just don't trust JDL to get him the ball on a bubble screen with the linebacker bearing down. I don't know, but yeah, I think he needs more touches. I just don't necessarily know if he needs more carries against an SEC front seven.
That's fair. But I would like to see Fam get some carries and some real touches against Stanford and against UTEP. I think this is a fair compromise, William.
I would agree with you on that. Yeah.
All right. Now, the 5-of-a-kind media. Did JDL make any any throws or dump offs to the running backs in this game? He had a couple to Wiley.
Wiley had 9 targets, 8 catches. Coleman had 3 catches. So,
by the way, yeah. Coleman has definitely gotten a next level burst to him that he didn't have last year. Again, he's always going to be short and squat, but he definitely has a next level burst that he didn't have last year, William.
He transformed his body a little bit. He's still a big, strong kid, but I think he came in. If anything, he spent too much time in the weight room and maybe not enough time doing.
Is there Larry Kroom to him?
I vaguely. I mean, I remember Larry Kroom. I can't remember how he was built, though. To be honest,
NFL Larry Kroom. Come on.
Yeah. I don't know. Who was the other running back Arizona had? Blunt. I mean, he was a big, strong, physical kid. I don't.
Yeah, but he wasn't any good though.
I don't remember how Kroom was built.
All right.
To my recollection, Kroom was more of a speedy guy than a power back.
Other thing I'd like to see, and again, we're nitpicking here because Jedd Fisch has done an amazing job here. I think the transformation is obvious for everybody to see. I would also like to see a few more of the receivers rotated in. Listen, I get not playing or taking T-Mac out of the game. He's too good. I know that Cowing, the numbers he has, T-Mac's the best wide receiver on the team. But other than that, with guys like Kevin Green, A.J. Jones, I'd like to see them get some run out there because, again, Jacob Cowing we talk about Speedy being small. Jacob Cowing's a little dude out there. Montana's solid, but I don't know that he's a player you can't take off the field. I'd like to see them use a little bit more depth out there.
They targeted wide receivers 27 times in that game.
Mm-hmm.
3 receivers, 27 times.
Yeah, I'm saying, man.
12 each to T-Mac and Cowing, just 3 for Lamonius Craig. Yeah, I think you got to utilize other guys. I do like the fact, they're throwing a lot to running backs. Again, they targeted 3 different running backs, 2 different tight ends. But yeah, I would not mind seeing spreading the wealth. And while you don't have to run spread, let's go 4 wides and see if you can move things around a little bit.
By the way, our guy Tanner McLaughlin back on the scene right there. Tanner McLaughlin needs to be JDL's best friend, in my opinion. When in doubt, look for where Tanner is. He's generally open, but just don't make the throw you don't need to make.
Yeah, that was that first throw. I think he thought he had his safety in the middle, and then,
like you said, he misjudged the depth. I'm fine with that.
Misjudged the depth. Yeah. Right now, his safety blanket's Wiley. That's apparent, or whoever's leaking out of the backfield.
Right.
Again, I think Wiley and Coleman combined for 9 targets. That's quite a bit to your running backs, and obviously there's a little bit of NFL in that. So
we got to give. By the way, Martell Irby, I have been remiss in not bringing him up. It sounds like he's going to be all right, but hasn't been confirmed yet. But Martell Irby,
they're acting like it's not an injury, which I think is weird because it sure looked like he went out injured.
It looked like he went out injured, yes. But Martell Irby has been a godsend for this defense. I mean, some dudes just kind of get it. You can tell they understand football. Martell Irby is one of those guys. He's got a little bit of that Tremaine Bonder in him that he just seems to kind of be around the ball.
Yeah, he's a ball hawk safety. Fits in well with some. And again, I think Warnell has been a kind of a lesser version. He's still been pretty good. He was certainly serviceable in replacing Irby. Irby makes more plays, but Warnell is, considering the safety play we've seen the last few seasons, Warnell is solid too. Again, I like what we've seen mostly from Taylor. It's just that other guy I'm not real fond of.
Isaiah Taylor, Gunnar Maldonado.
Great name, iffy player.
Yeah, it's a great name, but again, a very iffy player out there. But again, Tanner McLaughlin, another guy that I think you need to get in there. But overall, though, by the way, we got to give a shout out to Tyler Loop. That was awesome seeing it. Generally, I don't trust college kickers, especially Arizona kickers of the last 10 to 12 years. Tyler Loop went in there. He wanted that one. And not only did he want that one, he embraced the moment right there. I tip my cap. I salute Tyler Loop.
Yeah, it's been a while since Arizona's had a game-winning potential kick and been much longer since they've won one. Mm-hmm. Tyler Loop might have made himself a little bit of cash on that kick.
Right.
Because he didn't just make it, he crushed it.
Right. And let's see here. Eric Zimmerman, that tackle at the goal line by Irby was amazing. An angle that he took, plus forcing the fumble. Totally agree. The dude has an ability to just kind of see the football, to kind of hover towards the football there, William.
And let's not forget, Prysock deserves a lot of credit. He basically read the play and blew up his blocker to force the guy inside, and Irby was just waiting. Yeah, so that was a really nice play by the defensive backfield. Again, Dwayne Aquina, I'm going to give him some credit there.
One thing I think it's also fair to say that Ephesians Prysock, and we've talked about it a little bit, he's an NFL cornerback. I don't know at what level of an NFL cornerback he is. Maybe he's a high pick, maybe he's a mid-round pick. I don't know. But he very much looks the part of what an NFL cornerback is supposed to look like.
Yeah, or I could see him being a guy who plays corner in college and winds up as a safety in the NFL. With his size, he has some versatility. But yeah, he as long as his speed is legit, and I don't know what he's clocked at, he looks like an NFL type player. But
all right,
6'4", 6'3", 6'4", Yeah, there's a premium on that in the next level.
He's got the Brad Allis, Mike Luke height to him right there.
Also, if I put you on my shoulders, yeah.
Well, I am taller than Brad, so I'll take that. But BetMGM right here. Bet 10, get $200 right here. We've been telling you Vegas is a little bit behind the scene when it comes to University of Arizona football right here. Jacob Franklin, get the BetMGM thing up. There you go. Sign up for BetMGM right now. Use bonus code PHNX. Place your first BetMGM sportsbook wager through BetMGM Sportsbook mobile application of at least $10. You'll receive $200 instantly in additional winnings, regardless of your wager's outcome. Check out the show notes for details. Again, I will say that you need to get on this BetMGM stuff right here. This is the time right here. Bet against Brad's Chiefs. Actually, it's probably not good to bet against them, but hop in there. Now, let's hear Shane Diefenbach with the disclaimer.
Problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER. Colorado, D.C., Illinois, Indiana, Kansas, Louisiana, Maryland, Mississippi, New Jersey, Nevada, Ohio, Pennsylvania, Tennessee, Virginia, West Virginia, Wyoming. Call 877-8-HOPENY or text HOPENY 467-369 New York. Call 1-800-327-5050 Massachusetts. 21 plus to wager. Please gamble responsibly. Call 1-800-NEXT-STEP Arizona. 1-800-BETS-OFF Iowa. 1-800-270-7117 for confidential help Michigan. 1-800-981-0023 Puerto Rico in partnership with Kansas Crossing Casino and Hotel. Visit BetMGM.com for terms and conditions. U.S. promotional offers not available in D.C., New York, or Ontario.
All right, we got to give T-Mac, we got to talk T-Mac here a little bit. By the way, I saw T-Mac at Panda Express last night, by the way, hanging out with all the volleyball players. T-Mac's doing all right for himself. He deserves that.
Well, I have not seen this edition of the Arizona Wildcat volleyball team, but I can only guess based on past editions that that's a good hang.
He's hanging out with the right crowd. T-Mac knows what he's doing. He's also very tall. We haven't had a wide receiver like T-Mac here since, like that somebody that was just clearly next level. I mean, from a physical perspective, Jaron Kreiner, but he's better than Jaron Kreiner. Since probably Mike Thomas, Bobby Wade, Dennis Northcutt, he belongs in that kind of group. He's that good.
I'm not sure Arizona's ever had a receiver like him.
I agree.
Who combines raw freak athleticism with pass catching. Mike Thomas was great. At one point, the Pac-12 leading receiver of all time. He was 5'10".
Right.
Dennis Northcutt.
In my opinion, the best receiver in school history.
First pick of the second round?
Played 10 years in the NFL.
6 foot?
At most.
When Arizona has had bigger receivers, they've been slow guys. They've been Troy Dickey. You mentioned Kreiner. A few other, possession guys. This is an NFL receiver, more than likely. And he's, again, Cowing might play in the league. Cowing's a slot receiver. Cowing's undersized. T-Mac is...
T-Mac's different.
He looks like all those Ohio State and USC guys who keep getting drafted in the first round.
He does. And he looks like he could be a first-round pick. I think that's what's so intriguing about him.
It might come down to his speed, but he's a at worst a second-day guy. Yeah.
Right. And he's people don't realize until you get next to him, he's every bit of 220 pounds. He's going to go in there and he's going to be 6'4.5", 220 at the combine, whatever the case may be. Like you said, if he can run in the high 4.4s or low 4.5s, he's in a good spot.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know how tall Garrett Wilson is. I think he's 6'2", 6'3". Again, let's play the drinking game. The Chiefs have Justin Ross on their roster, the old standout from Clemson, who, of course, had the back and foot problems, but he's a 6'4" guy. You throw it up to him in the corner of the end zone.
How about a Mike Williams from Clemson?
Yeah. Again, I mentioned Ohio State and USC receivers. Those Clemson receivers are all the same guys. Right. And that's why it seems like every team has at least one guy from those three schools.
Rich Carrillo, my friend right here. Brad, does de Laura miss Dorian Singer's presence? I think it's fair to say. Now, listen, I mean, and I'm going to let Brad, it's Brad's question, but Dorian Singer's better than Montana Lamonius Craig. That's not a insult, but Dorian Singer's a better football player.
Yeah, I mean, I think we'll see. We'll learn more. I mean, if Arizona continues to score points, and again, how many points would Arizona have scored if they don't turn the ball over 5 times?
Right.
Let's say they convert on 2 of them, and we're suddenly talking about, what is that, 38 points? We're not complaining about the offense. Right. So yeah, are some of the reasons he's throwing picks because of Cowing? Maybe. or Singer, excuse me. But again, to me, the bigger issue is not that. It's the fact that he's targeting his top 2 receivers 24 times and only one other receiver 3 times. Yeah, let me see these other guys. Let's move that ball around.
Wealth here a little bit.
Yeah, I think that's what you need. That's just going to make T-Mac more effective.
Oh, 5 of a kind media. I know where you're going with this. Hey, Mike and Brad, did you see any highlights from Bash's win over Saguaro? I've seen Damon Williams in person twice. He's great. All I'm going to say, and I could easily see him being a multi-year starter here at the U of A and being very good. I would be incredibly surprised, though, if Noah Fafita, whenever that time comes, does not get that first crack at that quarterback position. And quite frankly, I think he's earned that right.
I mean, Arizona's, assuming everyone stays, Arizona's going to have some tough decisions to make over the next few years because they have, whenever de Laura leaves, they have 3 talented quarterbacks.
Right.
At least on paper. I mean, I haven't seen Dorman throw more than twice.
Most people expect JDL, I don't know in what capacity, probably moves on after this year. Take for what it's worth.
Yeah. I think he will try his hand at the NFL. He's not an NFL quarterback.
He's not an NFL player.
No. He might rip it up in Canada, though.
He could grad transfer and go somewhere as well, too. I mean, maybe it's something where both sides are just kind of ready for a new start. Kind of a Kirk Risa type situation, perhaps.
Wouldn't shock me.
Right. But overall, Damon Williams, very, very good. All right, now, switching over. We got to talk a little bit of Arizona basketball here. Now, this is a little bit different this year. I do believe this is going to be Tommy Lloyd's best team. If we could pull up that roster there, Jacob Franklin, just for a little refresher right here. But I do believe this is going to be Tommy Lloyd's best team. And a big reason why is because of the big men that they have going into this year. You've already got, obviously, Oumar Ballo, leader of men, but he looked a little out of shape. I think Keyshawn Johnson is actually going to be a more impactful player on both ends of the court than Tabellis. I get how good Tabellis was, but I think Keyshawn Johnson is more of what Arizona needs. And then on top of that, Krivas is a mountain of a man, and he showed that overseas. This is going to be an interesting front court right here, Brad.
I mean, you've got the hardest thing, I think, for Tommy's going to be figure out the minutes, because I think you got 6 relatively legit guys to plug in there. It's Ballo and Johnson are starting, and I think Krivas is penciled in as the first big off the bench.
No doubt.
But then you have Poly M. You've got assuming Vasar. I mean, I don't know where.
Here's where I'm at with the bigs. I believe that Keyshawn Johnson is going to play 30 minutes per game. I think he's the one dude that isn't really coming out at all. Outside of a few minutes here or there. Oumar Ballo, I believe, is probably going to play about 25 minutes per game. I'm very disappointed in Oumar Ballo getting that out of shape, but he's still a good player. I think Krivas is going to eat into a lot of Oumar Ballo's minutes right there, Brad, especially, too, because Oumar Ballo obviously wasn't training very hard this offseason.
Yeah, I mean, if you got, let's say you have 80 minutes for the 2 bigs, you got 55 eaten up already, and then whatever Krivas steals out of that. I think the only thing you have to look at is, does Johnson ever slide over to the 3? And I don't think he does. Does Poly M slide over to the 3? Right. I don't. How often do they go small with Pella as the 4, basically? So it's going to be interesting. And to me, a lot of it's going to be incumbent on. Okay, we weren't impressed with Vasar on the Middle Eastern trip, but he's coming off an injury, where he had that ankle injury at those international tournaments. So where is he at?
Right.
Because again, as much as we like the kid, it just doesn't appear like Dylan Anderson's ready.
I know where you're going. I don't like it.
So do we have a 3.5-man big man rotation? Are we a 3-man? Are we a 5? I don't know. I think the top 3 is solid. Anything other than that, I think there's questions. And I will say this, Jesse, if we get last year's Oumar Ballo, yes, Oumar Ballo, this isn't the pro game. You can have a dominant old school big man and get to the finals, but he has to be in shape.
He's got to be in shape. And I think a lot of this is incumbent too on how good Krivas is. Because again, he's looked the part. And not only did he look the part, he's massive. I mean, he dwarfs Umar Ballo, leader of men, and not many people dwarf Umar Ballo right there. So I think a lot of it is going to depend on how good Krivas is. And plus, Krivas looks like he's got a little bit of a shot in his repertoire. Again, it's not like he's ever going to be mistaken for Dirk Nowitzki, but I do think that he's got a little bit more flexibility than maybe Umar Ballo does with the push shot.
Yeah, and I think his ability to rim protect with the shot blocking is also, again, I could see him stealing a lot of minutes.
Right.
Again, I was a big fan of him after watching that first tape. So I'm hoping I'm going to be right on that one.
Right. All right. By the way, and I think you are going to be right. He's got to be in shape in 65. Yes, absolutely, Jesse Johnson. Great point. Robbie Dawn. What is your go-to order at Del Taco? Burger every time? Always the burger, sometimes the chili cheese fries. I don't get any of the Mexican food at Del Taco. All I get is the cheeseburger and the chili cheese fries. Brad, you have not tried the cheeseburger yet.
No, Tyler likes it. I always get the chicken burrito, no beans.
Wait a second. The great Tyler Allis has tried the
Yeah, Tyler's a burger guy. Burger and orange chicken. That's all he wants.
All right. Well, you know what? There's absolutely nothing wrong with that.
No. So when we were driving back from California this year, he got the I think the bacon cheeseburger from there and liked it. I don't know if he loved it, but he liked it.
You're teaching him well. Also,
I said my friend likes it. He's like, "Is it any good?" I'm like, "My friend likes it."
Just telling
He's
you,
like,
man.
Which friend? I'm like, the podcast guy. He's like, okay.
Telling you. All right. By the way, OGs. Check out our friends at OG's Brands for yourself and try one or a few of their many delicious flavors. Check them out across all socials at OG's Brands and online at ogsbrands.com to find them at a local dispensary near you. Must be 21 plus and enjoy responsibly. They got all kinds of stuff. The fruits, the red apple, the watermelon, the peach, you name it, they got it. All right. Let's see. Five of a Kind Media says visitors. Emmanuel Stephen is expected to be there for the Red-Blue game. I would imagine that Jamari Phillips would be there as well. Stephen, though, is the one guy that's not committed that I'm fairly certain is going to be there. Four-star kid that runs on the same four-star big man that runs on the same team as Bryant and Phillips.
I would assume some of those Phoenix guys will come down as well.
For sure. Oh, Zona Tucson. We taking care of business? Yes. I believe Arizona is going to roll these next two games. I think that they're going to beat UTEP. UTEP, though, is a little bit better than some people think. And I think Arizona is going to blast Stanford, even though it's on the road.
UTEP has a really good receiver. They got a decent running back in line. But I watched them play Rich Rod and Jacksonville State, and they're not good.
Arizona should win this game.
Yes.
By the way, how did that happen? I had a buddy that told me that the Del Taco cheeseburger is very good, the Double Del, and I tried it and it was fantastic, especially for the price. You got to consider the price here, William.
Well, see, you're a big fast food guy. I'm not a huge fast food guy. Brad,
why are you not a fast food guy?
One, I'm already fat. I don't really like fast food that much, to be honest.
All right. Well, we're going to keep trying. I brought it in to show Brian Jeffries and Lamont love it. They both liked it. So
I will.
Brad, you froze. All right. Well, until Brad unfreezes, going to preview a little bit of what we got going on Thursday. We have two very special guests, two very, very special guests. I.e. maybe two players that have not spoken to the media, but I think all of you would very much like to see right there. I'm really looking forward again. This is again, you will not want to miss this. We will be putting an announcement out tomorrow about this. But it's going to be a lot of fun, though. And Friday, we have a special guest as well. Thursday and Friday, though, big time stuff coming on right here. And like I said, we're going to have two guests on at the same time on Thursday, which you guys are all going to want to see. But as always, really, really appreciate all of you out there. You are all fantastic. You're the ones that make this show go. Certainly not me. But again, for Jacob Franklin, Brad Allis, I am merely Mike Luke. We will be back with you on Thursday, again, with two big-time guests that you're going to want to see here. We'll start teasing it on Twitter here shortly. But for Brad Allis, Jacob Franklin, the Del Taco Cheeseburger crowd, we'll talk with you tomorrow, or you've been listening to the AZ Wildcats podcast.